Reflections on the Good News of Jesus Christ for the third Sunday of Easter, from the Gospel according to John. At that time, Jesus revealed himself again to his disciples at the Sea of Tiberias. He revealed himself in this way. Together were Simon Peter, Thomas, called Didymus, Nathanael from Cana in Galilee, Zebedee's sons, and two others of his disciples. Simon Peter said to them, "I'm going fishing." They said to him, "We'll come with you." So they went out and got into the boat, but that night they caught nothing. When it was already dawn, Jesus was standing on the shore, but the disciples did not realize that it was Jesus. Jesus said to them, "Children, have you caught anything to eat?" They answered him, "No." So he said to them, "Cast the net over the right side of the boat, and you will find something." So they cast it, and were not able to pull it in because of the number of fish. So the disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, "It is the Lord." When Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he tucked in his garment, for he was lightly clad, and jumped into the sea. The other disciples came in the boat, for they were not far from shore, only about 100 yards, dragging the net with the fish. When they climbed out on shore, they saw a charcoal fire with fish on it and bread. Jesus said to them, "Bring some of the fish you just caught." So Simon Peter went over and dragged the net ashore full of 153 large fish. Even though there were so many, the net was not torn. Jesus said to them, "Come, have breakfast." And none of the disciples dared to ask him, "Who are you?" because they realized it was the Lord. Jesus came over and took the bread and gave it to them, and in like manner the fish. This was now the third time Jesus was revealed to his disciples after being raised from the dead. When they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" Simon Peter answered him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Jesus said to him, "Feed my lambs." He then said to Simon Peter a second time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Simon Peter answered him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Jesus said to him, "Tend my sheep." Jesus said to him the third time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter was distressed that Jesus had said to him a third time, "Do you love me?" And he said to him, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you." Jesus said to him, "Feed my sheep. I tell you truly, when you were younger, you used to dress yourself and go where you wanted. But when you grow old, you will stretch out your hands, and someone else will dress you and lead you where you do not want to go." He said this, signifying what kind of death he would glorify God. And when he had said this, Jesus said to Peter, "Follow me." The good news of the Lord. Another long night and nothing to show for it. Let's pack it up and go home. Yeah, I'm with you, Peter. Let's call it a night. Wait a minute. Someone's on the shore. It's still too foggy to see who it is, but he's saying something about lowering the nets on the other side. What does he know about fishing? I want to go home. Come on, let's give it one more try. What have we got to lose? You just never know when Jesus is going to break into your day or night. But just like the disciples, we must learn how to recognize him. Because the risen Jesus has many faces: my friends, my enemies, my rich neighbor, my poor neighbor. Just as he told us, he is especially to be found and recognized in the poor, the exploited, the handicapped, the weak, the uneducated, the stranger, the foreigner, the refugee. Jesus has a Jewish face, a Chinese face, an Indian face, a Filipino face, a Nigerian face, an Arab face, an American face. Christianity must never become a religion of insiders because, as he taught us, and Pope Francis repeated so many times, it is precisely in the outsider that Jesus is to be found. So, like the disciples, we too must come to recognize him not just at privileged moments of high spiritual experiences, but in the most mundane, ordinary moments of our daily activities. The great 20th century spiritual writer Henri Nouwen once commented that he used to be resentful whenever he was interrupted in his work, until he realized that oftentimes the interruptions were his real work. There's a lesson here. We might be resentful when our plans are interrupted. Sometimes these interruptions are minor: an unexpected phone call when we're working or watching television. Sometimes, though, they're major: an unplanned pregnancy that interrupts our career, an economic hardship that derails our plan for being a writer or an artist, a family situation that prevents us from pursuing a dream, a loss of health that puts everything on hold. Countless things, big and small, frequently conspire against our agendas and sabotage our dreams. We might be resentful and think to ourselves, if only this hadn't happened. Now I have to wait to go back to school. I have to wait to resume my career. Now I'll never have a chance to fulfill my dream. Sometimes in middle age, or even earlier, this resentment takes a more radical form. I've wasted my life, been a victim of circumstance, given in to the demands of others, and now I'll never get the chance to do what I really wanted. But the opposite is also true. Sometimes, instead of resentment, there's gratitude, because we realize that the interruptions, so unwelcome at the time, were really salvific. And far from derailing our real agenda, the interruptions were our real agenda. For example, some of us have perhaps known individuals or families where an unplanned pregnancy suddenly turned all plans upside down: economic, career, travel, new house. Initially, there might have been resentment, but later on, the unwanted interruption turned into a much wanted and loved child who helped create a happiness that dwarfed anything that might have resulted had original plans not been derailed by that interruption. The British historian A.N. Wilson, in a biography of C.S. Lewis, describes how Lewis's life as writer and professor at Oxford University was interrupted during virtually all of his productive years by the demands of his adopted mother, who made him do all the shopping and housework and demanded hours of his time daily for domestic tasks. Lewis's own brother, Warnie, who also lived in the household and who generally refused to let his own agenda be so interrupted, laments this fact in his diaries and suggests that Lewis could have been much more prolific had he not had to spend countless hours doing domestic chores. Lewis, however, gives a different assessment. Far from being resentful about these interruptions, he's grateful and suggests that it was precisely these domestic demands that kept him in touch with life in a way that other Oxford professors, who never had to shop and do housework, were not. Wilson agrees and suggests that it was precisely because of these interruptions, which kept Lewis's feet squarely on the ground, that Lewis was able to have such empathic insights into the everyday human condition. As these examples illustrate, what initially is experienced as an unwanted interruption can, in the end, be our real agenda. Of course, this isn't always true. Our lives are not meant to be left entirely to circumstance. We're meant to make choices, hard choices at times, to actively shape our own destiny. It can be unhealthy, even fatalistic, simply to accept whatever happens. It can also lead to considerable bitterness and disappointment with our lives. We have God-given dreams and talents, and in the name of the God who gave them to us, we must fight for our agenda. However, we must also look for the hand of God in our interruptions. These often appear as a conspiracy of accidents through which God guides and tutors us. If we were totally in control of our own agendas, if we could simply plan and execute our lives according to our own dreams with no unwanted demands, I fear that many of us would slowly and subtly become selfish, and also slowly and imperceptibly would find our lives devoid of simple joy, enthusiasm, family life, and real community. Throughout the Easter season, the scriptures are teaching us about the real significance of baptism. Today, we can see that baptism means derailment. In the closing lines of today's gospel, Christ baptizes Peter on the lake shore when he tells him, "Your life is no longer your own. Before you made a profession of love, you fastened your belt and walked wherever you liked. Now others will put a belt around you and take you where you would rather not go." To submit to love is to be baptized, to let our lives be forever interrupted. To not allow our lives to be interrupted is to say no to love. C.S. Lewis once said that we will spend most of eternity thanking God for those prayers God did not answer. I suspect we'll also spend a good part of eternity thanking God for those interruptions that derailed our plans, but baptized us into life and love in a way we could never have planned or accomplished by ourselves. We do not live by accomplishment alone, and sometimes what's best for us can only be learned when, quite frankly, we'd rather not be interrupted. Thanks for listening. Feel free to share this with anyone else if you care to. And if you'd like to subscribe and receive these gospel reflections every week, you may do so at our website, www.justanother.disciple.com. Once again, www.justanother.disciple.com. Once again, thanks for listening.